And the world is full of a lot of really beautiful, lovely, sensitive stories, but tonight will not be. And that is kind of your warning that at some point this evening, I'm very likely going to say something that pisses you off. And that's kind of my job. And so I'd like to read you a short story called Knock Knock that pretty much instantly sold to Playboy. It'll come out in the December Playboy. But you can say you knew it when. So, knock knock. And I have to also acknowledge that when I started writing in Tom Spanbauer's workshop, Tom would occasionally book us into these readings. He would get these readings in public places for us to present our work. And he would always arrange for us to read in places like sports bars and pool halls, where there were pinball machines and widescreen sports television and all this noise and a whole bunch of people who really did not want to hear us read our creative writing shit. And so you either got washed out by all those people saying, "Shut the fuck up! I don't want to hear about your daughter's death." Or you started writing stories like I started writing to deal with that. So, knock, knock. It's like sex, okay? You're just supposed to be there and be quiet till I'm done. My old man, he makes everything into a big joke. What can I say? The old man loves to get a laugh. Growing up, half the time, I didn't have a clue what his jokes were about, but I laughed anyways. Down at the barbershop, it didn't matter how many guys my father let take cuts ahead of him in line. He just wanted to sit there all Saturday and crack people up, make folks bust a gut. Getting his sideburns trimmed was definitely a low priority. He says, my old man, he says, "Stop me if you've heard this one before." The way my old man tells it, he walks into the oncologist's office and he says, "After chemotherapy, will I be able to play the violin?" In response, the oncologist says, "It's metastasized, and you've got about 6 months to live." And working his eyebrows like Groucho Marx, tapping the ash from an invisible cigar, my old man says, 6 months, he says, "I want a second opinion." So the oncologist, he says, "Okay, you've got cancer and your jokes stink." So they do the chemotherapy, and they give him some radiation like they do, even if the shit burns him up so bad on the inside that he tells me that taking a piss is like passing razor blades. He's every Saturday down by the barbershop telling jokes, even if now he's bald as a cue ball. I mean, he's skinny as a bald skeleton, and he's getting to haul around one of those cylinders of oxygen under pressure, like some little version of a ball and chain. He walks into the barbershop dragging that pressurized cylinder of oxygen with a tube of it going up and looping around his nose, over his ears and around his bald head, and he says, "Just a little off the top, please." And folks laugh. Understand me. My old man is no Uncle Milty. He's no Edgar Bergen. The man's skinny as a Halloween skeleton and bald, and going to be dead by 6 weeks. So it don't matter what he says. Folks are going to hee-haw like donkeys just out of their genuine affection for him. But seriously, I'm just not doing him justice. It's my fault if this doesn't come across, but my old man is funnier than he sounds. Maybe his sense of humor is a talent I didn't inherit. Back when I was his little Charlie McCarthy, the whole time growing up, he used to ask me, "Knock, knock," and I'd say, "Who's there?" He'd say, "Old lady." And I'd say, "Old lady who?" And he'd say, "Wow, I didn't know you could yodel." Me? I didn't get it. I was so stupid. I was 7 years old and still stuck in the first grade. I didn't know Switzerland from Shinola. But I want for my old man to love me, so I learned to laugh. Whatever he says, I laugh. By old lady, my guess is that he means my mom who ran away and left us. All my old man will say about her is how she was a real looker who just couldn't take a joke. She just was not a good sport. He used to ask me, when that Vinnie Van Gogh cut off his ear and sent it to that whore he was so crazy about, how'd he send it? The punchline is, he sent it by ear mail. But being 7 years old, I was still stuck back on not knowing who Van Gogh is or what's a whore, and nothing kills a joke. Nothing kills a joke faster than asking my old man to explain himself. So when my old man says, "What do you get when you cross a pig with Count Dracula?" I knew to never ask, "What's a Count Dracula?" I just sit there and get a big laugh ready for when he tells me, "A hampire." And when he says, "Knock, knock," and I say, "Who's there?" and he says, "Radio," and I say, "Radio who?" and he's already started to bust a gut when he says, "Radio not, I'm going to come in your mouth." Then what the hell? I just keep laughing. My whole growing up, I figure that I'm just too ignorant to appreciate a really good joke. My teachers still haven't covered long division and all the multiplication tables. So it's not my old man's fault that I'm so dumb that I don't know what's come. My old lady who abandoned us, he says that she hated that joke. So maybe I just inherited her lack of humor. But love. I mean, you gotta love your old man. I mean, after you're born, it's not like you get a choice. Nobody wants to see their old man breathing out of some tank, going into the hospital to die sky high on morphine, and he's not eating a bite of that red-flavored Jell-O they serve for dinner. Stop me if I already told you this one. But my old man gets that prostate cancer that's not even like cancer because it takes 20, 30 years before we even know he's so sick. And the next thing I know is I'm trying to remember all the stuff that he's ever taught me. Like if you spray some WD-40 on the shovel blade before you dig a hole, the digging will go a lot easier. And he taught me how to tie a shoelace and make a foul shot in basketball, and he taught me jokes. Lots and lots of jokes. And sure, the man is no Robin Williams. But I watched this movie one time about Robin Williams, who gets dressed up with a red rubber ball on his nose and this big rainbow-colored afro wig and those big clown shoes with a fake carnation stuck in the buttonhole of his shirt that squirts water. And the guy's a hotshot doctor who makes these little kids with cancer laugh so hard that they stop dying. Understand me. These bald kid skeletons who look lots more worse off than my old man. It's amazing, but they get healthy, and that whole movie is based on a true story. What I mean is, we all know that laughter is the best medicine. All that time being stuck in the hospital waiting room, I read every copy of the Reader's Digest. And we've all heard that true story about the guy with a brain cancer the size of a grapefruit inside of his skull, and he's about to croak. All the doctors and priests and experts say that he's a goner. Only he forces himself to watch nonstop movies about the Three Stooges, This stage 4 cancer guy forces himself to laugh nonstop at Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy and those Marx Brothers. And he gets healed by the endorphins and the oxygenated blood. So I figure, what have I got to lose? All I need to do is remember some of my old man's favorite gags and to get him started back laughing on the road to recovery. I figure, what could it hurt? So this grown-up son walks into his father's hospice room, pulls up a chair beside the bed and sits down. The son looks into his old man's pale, dying face and he says, so this blonde gal walks into a neighborhood bar where she's never been before, and she's got tits out to here and a tight little hiney, and she asks the bartender for a Michelob. And he serves her a Michelob, except he sneaks a Mickey Finn into her bottle, and this blonde goes unconscious, and every guy in the bar leans her over the edge of the pool table and hikes up her skirt and fucks her. And at closing time, they slap her awake and they tell her that she's got to leave. And every few days, this gal with the tits and the ass, she walks in and she asks for a Michelob and she gets a Mickey Finn and she gets fucked by the crowd until one day she walks in and she asks the bartender, can he maybe give her a Budweiser instead? Granted, I have not landed this particular shaggy dog story since I was in the first grade, but my old man, he used to love this next part. The bartender smiles so nice and says, what? You don't like Michelob no more? And this real looker, she leans over the bar all confidential and she whispers, just between you and me, she whispers, Michelob makes my pussy hurt. The first time I learned that joke, when my old man taught it to me, I didn't know what was pussy. I didn't know Mickey Finn. I didn't know what folks meant when they talked about fucking. But I knew that all of this kind of talk made my old man laugh. And when he told me to stand up and tell that joke in the barber shop, it made the barbers and every old man reading detective magazines laugh until half of them blew spit and snot and chewing tobacco out their noses. So tonight, the grown-up son tells his old dying father this joke. Just the two of them alone in that hospital room, late at night. And guess what? His old man doesn't laugh. So the son tries another old favorite. He tells a joke about the traveling salesman who gets a phone call from some farmer's daughter he met on the road a couple months before. And she says, remember me? We had some laughs and I was a good sport. And the salesman says, how you doing? And the farmer's daughter says, I'm pregnant and I'm gonna kill myself. And the salesman, he says, damn, you are a good sport. At 7 years old, I could really put that joke over. But tonight, my old man is still not laughing. How I learned to say I love you was by laughing for my old man, even if I had to fake it. And that's all I want in return. All I want from him is a laugh, just one laugh. But he's not coming across with even a giggle, not a snicker, not even a groan. And worse than not laughing, the old man squints his eyes shut tight and opens them brimming with tears, and one fat tear floods out the bottom of each eye and washes down each cheek. The old man's gasping his big toothless mouth like he's screaming or panting but can't do neither, crying big tears down the wrinkles of both cheeks, just soaking his pillow. So this kid, who's nobody's little kid, not anymore, but who all he knows to do is tell these stupid jokes, he reaches into his pants pocket and takes out a fake plastic carnation flower that, just for laughs, sprays water all over the old crybaby's face. The kid tells about the Polak who's carrying a rifle through the woods when he comes across a naked gal laying back on a bed of soft green moss with her legs spread, and this gal is a real looker. And she looks at the Polak and his gun, and she says, "What are you doing?" And the Polak says, "I'm hunting for game." And this real looker, she gives him a big wink, and she says, "I'm game." So, pow! The Polak shoots her. It used to be this joke constituted a gold-plated, bona fide, surefire laugh riot. But my old man still keeps dying. He's just boo-hooing and not even making an effort to laugh. And no matter what, the old man has got to meet me halfway. I can't save him if he doesn't want to live. I ask him, "What do you get when you cross a faggot with a kike?" I ask him, "What's the difference between dog shit and a nigger?" And he's still not getting any better. I'm thinking maybe the cancer's got into his ears. With the morphine and what all, it could be that he just can't hear me. So just to test, can he hear me? I lean into his old crybaby face and I ask, "How do you get a nun pregnant?" Then more loud, maybe too loud for this being a mackerel snapper hospital, I yell, "You fuck her!" In my desperation, I try fag jokes and wetback jokes and kike jokes. Really every effective course of treatment known to medical science. And the old man is still slipping away. Laying here in this bed is the man who made everything into a big joke. Just the fact that he's not biting scares the shit out of me. I'm yelling, "Knock, knock." And when he says nothing in response, it's the same as him not having a pulse. I'm yelling, "Knock, knock." I'm yelling, "Why did the existentialist cross the road?" And he's still dying. The old man's leaving me not knowing the answer to anything. He's abandoning me while I'm still so fucking stupid. In my desperation, I reach out to take the limp blue fingers of his cold, cold dying hand. And he doesn't flinch, not even when I grind a joy buzzer against the blue skin of his ice-cold palm. I'm yelling, "Knock, knock." And nothing kills a joke faster than asking my old man to explain himself. But I'm yelling, "Why did the old lady walk out on her laugh-a-minute, funny man jokester husband and her 4-year-old kid?" And laying there in that bed, my old man, he stops breathing, no heartbeat, totally flatlined. So this kid who's sitting bedside in this hospital room late at night, he takes out the joke equivalent of those electric paddles doctors use to stop your heart attack, the hee-haw equivalent of what a paramedic Robin Williams would use on you in some clown emergency room, a kind of Three Stooges defibrillator. The kid takes a big, creamy, heaped-up custard pie topped with a thick, thick layer of whipped cream, the same as Charlie Chaplin would save your life with. And the kid reaches that pie up sky high overhead, as high as the kid can reach, and brings it down hard, lightning fast, slam dunking it as hard as the blast from a Polak shotgun. Pow! Right in his old man's kisser. And despite the miraculous, well-documented healing powers of the comedic arts, my old man dies taking a big bloody shit in his bed. No, really, I swear. It was funnier than it sounds. Please don't blame my old man. If you're not laughing at this point, it's got to be my fault. I just didn't tell it right, you know? You mess up the punchline, and you can totally botch even the best joke. For example, I went back to the barber shop, and I told them how he died and how I tried to save him, right up to and including the custard pie, and how the hospital had their security goons escort me up to the crazy ward for a little 72-hour observation. And even telling that part, I fucked it up. Because those barbershop guys, they just looked at me. I told them about seeing and smelling my old man, dead and smeared all over with blood and shit and whipped cream, all that stinking sugar. And they just looked at me and looked at me. The barbers and the old guys chewing tobacco, and nobody laughed. And standing in that same barbershop all these years later, I say, knock, knock. The barbers stopped cutting hair. The old goobers stopped chewing their chewing tobacco. I say, knock, knock. Nobody takes a breath, and it's like I'm standing in a room full of dead men. And I tell them, death! Death is there! Don't you people never, ever read Emily Dickinson? You never heard of Jean-Paul Stewart? I wiggle my eyebrows and tap the ash from my invisible cigar, and I say, who's there? I say, I don't know who's there. I can't even play the violin. What I do know is I've got a brain filled with jokes that I can't ever forget, like a tumor the size of a grapefruit inside of my skull. And I know that eventually even dog shit turns white and stops stinking. But I have this permanent head filled with crap that I've been trained my whole life to think is really funny. And for the first time since I was that little stooge standing in that barbershop saying fag and cunt and nigger and saying kike, I figure out that I wasn't telling a joke. I was the joke. I mean, I finally get it. Understand me. A bona fide gold-plated joke is like a Michelob served ice cold with a Mickey Finn by somebody smiling so nice that you won't never know how bad you've been fucked. And a punchline is called a punchline for a very good reason, because punchlines are a sugar-coated fist with whipped cream hiding the brass knuckles that socks you right in the kisser, hitting you pow! Right in your face and saying, I am smarter than you and I am bigger than you and I call the shots here, buddy boy. And standing in that same old Saturday morning barbershop, I scream, knock, knock. I demand, knock, knock. And finally, one old barbershop codger, he says in barely a tobacco whisper, so soft that you can hardly hear him, he says, who's there? And I wait for a beat, just for the tension. My old man, he taught me that timing is crucial. Timing is everything. Until finally, I smile so nice, and I say, radio. That's knock, knock.